Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. It is Wednesday. What date is it? 26th of September. 4 days out from my birthday. I usually go all month long like Dennis Rodman. But again, tonight my topic is on the myth of African Americans in the community and therapy. And I take this topic from something I saw on MSN.com yesterday about Taraji P. Henson and her work on getting more individuals involved with the therapeutic process. And so, a lot of what she says, and I applaud her for it. A lot of what she said is valid when it comes to therapy and when it comes to the people of African American community. I mean, you wouldn't realize if I had $1 or maybe $5 for every person that would say, well, really, I want to bring my son or I want to bring my husband to you because I like, a black male and the relatability that I believe that you would possess within a clinical setting and everything like that. And that's cool or so. Um, but what I also want to do is just bring out a little bit of other things that go along the lines with this whole thing with African Americans in therapy. If we were to do our research, one thing we would find is that there weren't that many African American therapists in this field for a very long time. Which maybe within the last 20 years or so, we begin to see an uptick in those becoming licensed professional counselors, marriage and family therapists, social workers, and the list goes on and on. So as we begin to grow, then the frequency of different male and people of color clinicians begin to serve the marketplace. Something that, again, is somewhat of a nuance within the last 20 or some 30 odd years. So it takes time for us to build up that land space in an area that was dominated by westernized philosophies. Hold up 1 minute. Hello, Kim. How you doing? Thanks for tuning in. What's going on, Raina? Thanks you for tuning in as well. And so again, it comes along with those things is that in this recent time, it just hasn't been. So now we have African clinicians, American clinicians. So let's go a little bit deeper with that. Uh, the story that I've known for quite a long time is that when it comes to problems and issues and things that many of us suffer, the African American church is very tied in with the church. I mean, African American community is tied in with the church. So when there was a problem or the situation or something that went down, what did we do? Generally, we went to the pastor and we relied on the pastor to have a lot of the answers for us to help us with those common day issues, whether it would be depression, whether it would be anxiety, whether it would be something as simple as a personality disorder. We would rely on the pastor to give us the answers and the guidance and to be that listening ear to help us through those moments. However, if we go back and we were to do a little bit more research and discover what was the pastor actually trained to do in those cases, and what you'll find is that their training is not the same as the training of a primary care clinician or a social worker or a marriage and family therapist. There is a longer rigor. I would argue to say that it wasn't rival totally, but it's somewhat exhaustive, just like if someone's becoming a medical doctor. I know for me, it was three some odd years of training within the classroom setting, and then there was the supervision portion of that, and then there's also the licensure portion of that as well too. And so those years click on and on and on and on. Again, to be able to work with individuals effectively, to be able to diagnose them, to be able to institute treatment modalities, to be able to work with them from a multiculturalistic aspect or so. That takes time. And what I'm here to say is a lot of people, clergymen, pastors, did not have that necessary training. And I'll say, and to some degree, some of them, I believe, were ill-equipped to handle those things. But again, that was the notion with the African American community for a long period of time, because who else was it for us to go and seek aid, counsel, guidance from? Again, there were not that many African American clinicians along with those lines. And so then there's that issue. And so then we get to the point of where we're talking about uh, trust, and some of this stuff also too. It boils down to, again, intergenerational trauma. When we look at different, okay, let me put it from this perspective. So, for instance, say that you have someone that has been sexually assaulted or done wrong, or some sexual violence has been betrayed upon them. They got raped, pretty much, if I could say it like that. And so, if that person is someone that you have to consistently see on a daily basis, over and over again, time in after time out, and you've never been able to address the situation or the issue, you've never been able to process it, you've never been able to get healing from that moment or so, but you continue to have to view and see that person on a consistent basis, what do you think that does to you? What do you think? How do you think a person would feel with that person around? I mean, it builds up a sense of mistrust to the point of you not necessarily knowing that you can't trust them, or maybe you don't want to trust anyone else around you at that token. So again, these are some of the things that the African American community and people of color have seen over the last 20, 30, 40 odd years, is that we haven't had the people who could possibly respond to us in an effective manner, or that we felt comfortable with, because of some of the things that have happened to us, as you guys would say, as we became on this rock. Again, and it's not anything that maybe some others are doing, but again, it's culture, it's context, and I hope people begin to understand that. Now, what I also want to say is the flip side of this whole conversation. African Americans are not the only ones who do not generally seek therapy. We have those of the Asian community. We have those of the Native American community. I mean, be honest with you, the only time that I would see some of them in my office is if they are court ordered. They may be court ordered for an anger management class, or they may be court ordered for a substance abuse DUI class that has happened or so. And again, those things happen. But other than that, those things are not necessarily a fixture in their approach or in their community, because they have their own different ways of handling them. And so I want to get out of that. I don't want to necessarily get this notion when it comes to therapy, or when it comes to us seeking aid or seeking help, that it's just a black issue or a male issue or anything like that. There are other cultures that practice the same thing. However, again, let's continue to put these things in context, because some of those other cultures did not have the same experiences that we have had or continue to have on a continuous basis, especially when you have these vivid images on the television screen week after week of prominent men or our loved ones being gunned down, hurt, maimed, maligned, chastised, or anything like that. And again, that is trauma over trauma over trauma. And unfortunately, some of us, we are beginning to understand the power and the effects of therapy. But then again, when it comes to that, it's also the idea of, how does this thing work? Because sometimes we can get into the notion or the idea that it's somewhat of a magic pill. I give you the magic pill, you're healed. I'm sorry. It doesn't necessarily work like that. I give you the pill. Take this. How you doing, Lynn? It's great for you to tune in with us. I give you the pen. I give you the pill, and then you'll be healed within the next 2 days or 6 minutes or anything like that. But again, this is trauma. These things are generational. They have been going on and taking place over and over again. And it's not like something that you can use one dosage or so, and that everything be cleared away within your system. It takes a buildup in your system. When I'm working with individuals who have are suffering with depression, the things along with depression and the evidence-based material along with that, it tells us that you not only need your antidepressants, but clinical counseling talk therapy is effective as well too with that process. When we're working with someone who is suffering from an opioid use disorder, yes, you can go and give them Suboxone, you can give them methadone, you can give them a lot of those other MATs, but talk therapy and counseling therapy working in concert together with that is effective. And so what I'm trying to say is that there needs to be a build-up. There needs to be an identification of not only the biology situation that is going on in that person's life, but the psychology as well. And that's what we're here for. And I think that as our culture begins to learn of the power of therapy and the effectiveness of what it actually does and what it actually doesn't, then I believe we'll begin to see some of the changes in that aspect, in that avenue. But until then, how you doing, Maria Drombush? God bless you. That's my wife. But anyway, we'll be able to see some of the things that we need to see. But my last point, however, is that when it comes to treatment and when it comes to therapy, and again, I applaud it. When I started off this conversation, I talked about Taraji P. Henson, and she talks about the effectiveness of therapy and what it's doing for the black community and being able to relate to see individuals who look like us and are able to work with our people. However, what I want to put out there is that to be able to continue in that process, it is difficult. Why? Because it costs money. And let me get it from here. So I can give it to you maybe about 2 or 3 different ways. And y'all bear with me, I'm just about done. If you're working with a community mental health agency, they possibly get an intern who just came out of school and they are working with your son or daughter. Maybe that community mental health agency is not paying enough to that clinician, that primary care counselor, so that they will be able to feed their own family and take care of their student loans and everything that goes along with that. So what? Now that person may work with your son or daughter for about 6 to 8 months. Now mind you, during that 6 to 8 months, that clinical relationship has grown because that counselor has gotten used to your son or daughter. Your son or daughter has gotten used to them, and now they're starting to gel. Now they're starting to discuss some of those things. The trauma, the experiences, and everything that goes along with that is beginning to unravel, to unfold. And now we're being able to go places that possibly wouldn't be able to go prior to that because the rapport and the trust wasn't there. Okay, great. Then all of a sudden, that primary counselor leaves because they find a better job somewhere else, or they may want to start their own private practice. And then where does that leave your son or daughter? So again, that's an economical issue. Now let's look at another portion of that. Insurance. It's funny because sometimes when I'm calling different insurance panels, when I'm checking insurance for some of my clients, some of their deductibles are ridiculous. I'm just going to be honest with you. $5,000, $7,000, $9,000. $9,000 that has to be met before the insurance company will take into account or address the behavioral health needs of that person. So what does that person do in the meantime? They don't have the money. They have to hope that they can work something out with the counselor on a sliding scale. But then the counselor has office to pay for. He possibly has a staff. He possibly has other different expenses that he needs to continue to keep running and keep going. And so that's another big issue, again, the whole economic structure and system of the therapeutic world. It's not as streamlined as it is for a medical doctor, but again, it has its hiccups, it has its bumps, and that's what we continuously see within our communities, especially with those individuals who do not have the means to access that consistent, needed care. And that's what it comes down to. So you take it from the beginning to the end. You take the economic portion of it, and then you take the consistency of that, and then what do you have left at the end? You have a person who has just started something, but can't continue it. And they would benefit from it tremendously, but they don't have the financial resources for it. They don't have the means to help themselves with that. Or unfortunately, they don't have the infrastructure to be able to get in a car and ride where they need to be able to find or build the rapport or just to actually see the person. And that's a lot of what we have right now today. Okay. And so, again, wrapping it up, yes, we do have some barriers when it comes to not substance abuse, but mental health in the African American community. But what I want to do is I want to break it down a little bit clearer and concise to help people understand that it's not just about people not wanting to go and to take part into these services. A lot of it is the structure that is built around it. And unfortunately, until we are able to identify what's going on, Kes, how are you doing? Thank you for tuning in. Until we're able to identify, more streamlined ways, such as things like remote therapy. We all have a phone. That's a possible way. And then sometimes, other avenues to where we can work with our different clients and we can work with them on a consistent basis. Then we may see some of the things that we would like to see, because that's when the change has an opportunity to take place. Not saying that it automatically will, but it has an opportunity because you're linking people and different individuals one with another, so that are trained to work with, your loved one, son or daughter. All right. So pretty much that's all I got for this evening. Appreciate you guys stopping in and tuning in with this. For more on this topic and topics like this, visit us at bushcounselingservices.com. That is bushcounselingservices.com. You guys take care and have a great evening. Oh, whoa. I'm sorry. Lynn just had to throw something at the end. Research suggests that the premature discontinuation of treatment amongst the AA community is increasingly high due to the reasons you've mentioned. Well, Lynn, I appreciate you validating just about everything I just said right there. But again, it's research, but it's also things that we've seen. You've seen it, I've seen it. And it's unfortunate because sometimes we are, as people of the AA community, we are linked with those. It is not saying that they don't have a heart to care, but sometimes they might not necessarily possess the tools or the perspective to work with an individual that is in those type of settings. And again, it's not necessarily about a black or white thing, but it's about fit. And you guys know, if you've been watching any of these live videos, I am a big person that is a proponent of fit. Everybody doesn't fit together. There are some places that I can go in Tennessee where I just don't fit. And I'm okay with that. I'm very secure in that idea. And then there are certain places where I just show up and it's like, that kind of idea where it's like, what's up, brother? What's up, bro? I don't know your name. I've never seen you. I couldn't find you on a milk box, but it's like, what's up? What's good? What's good, Dak, man? Dak from home. Thanks for tuning in. It's fit. And a fit has a lot to do with that. And so when we find those fits or we find those opportunities, then it's great. But when the economic situation does not support that fit that is needed, then what is left? Because then if there's a young adolescent, that's another adult that has possibly abandoned me, neglected me, and left me. And what does that do to that young man or that young daughter? It just gives them more of a complex, more of an approach of how to see adults in the world. Everybody leaves me. Everybody moves on while I'm still in this negative situation. So what do I have to do? Ultimately, I have to fend for myself. I grew up learning to not trust people. I grew up learning that, okay, they're going to do what they're going to do, and I'm going to do what I do. And when I'm tired, I'm tired. I don't care what kind of consequences come overall in the end about any of that. And so, again, it's about fit. It's about, the economic structure, a lot of the stuff that goes along in that kind of stuff. And if we don't pay attention to it, or if we don't have people that are looking to become innovative in our approach to working with these communities, then what are we doing? If we're not part of the solution, then I guess, are we part of the problem? I don't know. You tell me. But again, for more on this topic and topics like this, you guys can visit us at bushcounselingservices.com. That is James Bush as well as Maria Bush. Thank you. Have a great evening.